Let's begin. Chance is a hardworking student with a passion for her mom's cooking. So she thought, why not apply to the nutrition department at college? So people can love my mom's food and I can make it famous. Her father is a devoted man who loves his family, and her best friend has been with her since childhood. They both saw their acceptance results and were thrilled as each got into the department they wanted. On the first day of college, Suum also joined her department. He's secretly in love with her, but acts like a best friend, just waiting for the right moment. Suddenly, they ran into Jin, their friend from school, and the three decided to form a close-knit group. One day, they were leaving a lecture when the popular clique of guys passed by, surrounded by girls from every direction. In the commotion, someone bumped into her and her phone fell. Poor girl went crawling on her stomach like a lizard to get it, only for one of the guys to step on it, shattering it completely. She ran after them, aiming to grab one by the hair, but ended up grabbing the wrong person. Someone important at the university. She got scolded so harshly it could last her a year. When she told her friends, they had no idea who those popular guys were and why they had a crowd around them. Then, Shiji from the journalism department came along and said, "You guys must be new here," and took them on a tour to explain who those guys were. It turns out these guys are famous for their looks, charisma, and their unbeatable skill in a game called Bridge. No one has been able to beat them yet. So naturally, everyone wants to join them. First up is Miso, sharp and witty, with a killer sense of humor. Then there's Shimon, the mysterious one that no one can figure out. It's hard to tell his front from his back. Next is Woozy, a music lover and a chill guy. Lastly, there's the most important one, the gang leader. Smart, handsome, and can get money out of thin air. He made 1,000,000 yuan at just 18. He also plays a game called Bagram, making people fear him. Long story short, no one dares challenge them unless they win. One of the four sends them a joker card, as they're used to people trying to challenge them. But don't let just anyone in easily. If someone does manage to beat them, their punishment is intense. They might make you clean all semester, or stand in the fountain and embarrass yourself, or even lock you in the lab at night. Devilish stuff, really. Once Chance, feeling brave, tried to approach Dao Ming to demand an apology for breaking her phone, but he told her, "Stay away, sweetheart, or you'll get soaked. That haircut of yours doesn't exactly make me take you seriously." So she was bringing a cake for her friend Jin's birthday, but suddenly she nearly tripped, and the cake ended up all over his face. Our girl grabbed Jin's arm to keep from falling, but Mr. Curly Hair lost his temper and made a huge deal out of it. When she tried to apologize, he shoved her. But with Chance taking her bravery pills, she started giving him a piece of her mind, calling him Big Head and saying, "We're already putting up with your attitude. Now you're taking it out on this poor girl?" He grabbed her by the collar and warned, "Don't say things you'll regret." True enough, he later placed a joker card in her locker. She went ballistic, as she hadn't expected to get into this kind of trouble so early on, wishing he and his friends would turn into monkeys with nose hairs growing as long as their arms. Woozy, who was nearby, asked her, "Would you be happy if they turned into hairy monkeys?" She apologized, but he hadn't meant to scare her and walked away with a smirk, like he was some kind of actor in a drama. Back home, her mom asked her to deliver a food order, only to find out that Mr. Curly Hair was the one who'd ordered it. Of course, he only did it to flaunt that he was helping her family, but she knew he was just bullying her and wouldn't let him drag her mom's cooking into it. She told him he thought he was smart and sophisticated, but in reality, he was just a drain on society. He couldn't take it and threw the food back at her. She left crying, and while washing her clothes, two guys came to bother her. But Woozy told them to leave her alone, and he comforted her as she cried, asking why Dao Ming was treating her this way. He then stood on his hand and told her, "If you feel like crying, stand on your hand and the tears won't come out." The next day, she went to college, seeing no one but Dao Ming. She gave him a kick, which the popular clique thought was hilarious, and wrapped him up like a mummy. Miso even recorded a video saying, "This is Miso from Egypt reporting our latest discovery, a mummy of a guy who got kicked by a girl shorter than him. Long live Egypt." When Dao Ming came to, he fumed. "This is the worst day of her life. I'm going to make her pay." But Woozy, their sweetheart, told him, "Dude, two guys harassed her after she left your place. What did you expect her to do?" Then they left him there, wrapped up. The next day, she passed by the music room by chance and saw Woozy playing. So she went in to return his handkerchief and thank him. But he wouldn't take it back. so she suggested he could see it again on the rooftop. He replied that he wasn't planning on going up there anymore, acting all cool as if he wasn't going to end up as the third wheel in the end. Later, as she left the university, she saw bodyguards coming to take her to Mr. Curlyhair, who wanted to apologize. But heaven help her, it was like she'd walked into Madame Fazia's salon. One was massaging her, another dressing her up, and yet another styling her hair, as if he wanted to make her into a whole new person. She finished and waited outside. And when she saw a picture of him with his clique, her eyes lingered on Woozy. Just then, Dao Ming walked in, crossed his legs, and asked, "Are you interested in Woozy or what?" "Forget it, he's not for you." She replied, "He can belong to whoever he wants." Dao Ming then offered, "If you agree to be my girlfriend and stick with me at college, I'll buy you clothes and a new phone." Thinking he was a billionaire, just throwing money around, along with everything coming from his side, and gestured with her shoe. The next day, as he passed by, he told his friends, "You know, Chance is obsessed with my teddy bears." They didn't believe him and joked, "Since she's so innocent, let's prank her and put cockroaches in her locker or scare her in the bathroom." Shimon and Mizo felt that was childish, and Woozy didn't respond at all, clearly not interested in playing such foolish games. At the cafe where she works, Shimon and Woozy came in to order something, and she was stunned, completely frozen, even after they had left. She was staring at a map on the wall, trying to figure out which country it was. Woozy suddenly said, "That's Paris." And this time they actually talked and even joked a bit. They walked down together from the rooftop, and when her friends saw them, they told her not to get her hopes up, because he's in love with someone named Jing. Later that night, she saw Woozy at the bus stop, looking at a picture of Jing, who is apparently a famous actress. He turned to her and said she was beautiful, then kissed her on the cheek, leaving her totally lost in her daydreams, convinced he might actually like her. But as she walked by Dao Ming, "Can't you see I'm passing by?" She replied sarcastically, "Excuse me, I'm just grateful you passed by safely," noticing he had even changed his awful hairstyle. He said, "I did this new look for you." Well, a monkey's still a monkey, no matter what it tries to do. Her friend then came over and asked what was going on, and she shrugged it off, saying she was just laughing at a certain someone's ridiculousness. Just then, someone told Dao Ming that Jing had arrived at the school. She's the girl Woozy is in love with, and of course, the whole popular clique knows her. They all rushed to greet her, and when she hugged Woozy, it was clear he was smitten. The next day, she saw them together and decided to focus on her studies and forget about him. But Dao Ming wouldn't leave her alone. He asked her to come with him, but she declined, as she was going to eat with her friend Xiao. Each time he saw her with Xiao, he got angrier, until he finally sent Xiao a joker card to challenge him. She grabbed the card from Xiao and told Dao Ming, "Solve whatever issue you have with me, without involving my best friend." He asked, "What do you even see in that idiot?" She replied, "He's better than you. At least he has a heart and a brain, unlike you." One day, as she was going to eat in the cafeteria, she saw Dao Ming and tried to avoid looking at him, but he came straight over. She quickly got up with her food, only to accidentally bump into someone who then yelled at her. Dao Ming stepped in to get the guy away and told her, "If you were with me, you wouldn't be dealing with this." He held her by the cheeks, but then Woozy came to help her and pulled her away. Dao Ming grabbed her other arm and asked Woozy if he liked her. Woozy just told him to let go, challenging him, and they both got personal. Dao Ming finally released her, saying to Woozy, "If you walk away with her, I'll consider you no longer my friend." Woozy took her away, and in the restroom, Jing helped her change into clean clothes. When she came out, Zhao was feeling guilty for not being able to protect her, and decided to start learning martial arts so no one would bother her again. Zhao then suggested they travel to another city for the upcoming week off, but she refused because she didn't have money for it. He assured her not to worry, as his family has a villa there and would be happy to host her. At home, she was lying on the bed when Dao Ming showed up to check on her. Her family was impressed by his looks and height, even though she told them to kick him out, because he was the reason she was in this mess. Her family, however, didn't listen and invited him to sit and eat with them. He was polite, quite unlike his usual self, as if he wasn't the same person. Zhao was the same guy who gave her trouble day and night. As she walked him out to see him off, he asked what she'd do over the break and suggested she join him. She declined. saying she couldn't afford a ticket, but he insisted he'd pay for her. Who do you think you are to pay for me? Besides, I'm already traveling with Xiao, so just drop it. The next day, she really did travel with Xiao and was amazed by his family's villa. They then went out to ride his father's boat. Feeling a bit overwhelmed by how big and expensive it looked, she asked if it was really theirs, but he clarified they'd actually be taking the smaller one. Just then, the popular clique appeared out of nowhere. Like they always do, Jing invited her to join them at a party, but she hesitated, not wanting to cause any drama. Jing insisted, even taking her to find a dress. At the party, Dao Ming couldn't stop glancing at her, and eventually approached. But suddenly the lights went out, and she accidentally fell on him. She quickly got up, hoping she could disappear, because it was her first time getting close to anyone like that. The next day, she was passing by the group, and Shimin teased her. Annoyed, she brushed him off, but Dao Ming chimed in, saying she had intentionally fallen on him. She wasn't interested in their opinions, she just didn't want Woozi to misunderstand. But Woozi simply told her, honestly, I don't care whether you kissed him on purpose or not, so she rushed off. Xiao then went over to Dao Ming's house and challenged him, waving a slipper at him for forcing himself on her. Dao Ming just replied, if it bothers you that much, let's settle this with a fishing contest. If I win, you'll regret it. They went fishing, but oddly, they spent the whole time talking about her. Dao Ming thought she was clueless, but Xiao argued she was more beautiful than he realized. Back at school, something important went missing, and the teacher wanted them to list people they suspected, but she refused to name anyone. Confident her friends weren't thieves. She was punished that day for standing up for them, and from then on, she and Xiao became inseparable. Back at the fishing contest, Dao Ming caught a squid and made a big deal of it, while Zhao's bucket was full. When they returned to shore, they found her crying, though she claimed something just got in her eye. Zhao didn't miss a beat, boasting to her that he'd beaten Dao Ming, but Dao Ming's face suddenly turned red. Zhao laughed, saying, are you thinking about what happened between you two? And chased him down to hit him, making her laugh despite her frustration at their antics. After break, back at school, she opened her locker to look for her sneakers, but they were missing. Of course, curly-head Dao Ming had taken them and tried to wear them himself, ripping them in the process. She sighed and left them, figuring she'd be wasting her energy fighting him. Her friends teased him, asking why he was so eager to show off the torn shoes. Be patient. I'm just luring her in. When she falls in love with me, I'll dump her like the others. On the rooftop, she saw Wu Zi drawing, and she had a feeling he was sketching Jing. She noticed some chalk on his hair, and since he couldn't see where it was, she told him to lower his head so she could get it off for him. Just then, the sneaky girl who has a crush on Dao Ming was snapping photos from behind. She ran to show Dao Ming, saying, look at the girl who kissed you at the party. Now she's cozying up to Wu Zi. Furious, he stormed off. Meanwhile, she went back up to the roof to grab something she'd forgotten, only to find him there, carrying all his anger. He was starting to believe all the gossip. She tried to leave, but he cornered her against the wall and told her to stop playing games with him, which left her bewildered. He told her not to act innocent, punching the wall beside her. She was terrified and ran until she tripped. He grabbed her again, saying, this is all because of you. She broke down, begging him to leave her alone, and at that moment, he started to regret his actions, apologizing and promising he wouldn't hurt her again. Since then, whenever they saw each other, they'd avoid eye contact. She was scared to see him, and he felt guilty for what he'd done. Even his friendship with Wu Zi became strained. Wu Zi's friends asked him if anything was going on between him and her. But of course, he had no response since they all knew he was in love with Jing anyway. On Jing's birthday, our girl was getting ready with her friend from school, planning to attend, and Xiao offered to drive them. They made it to the party and immediately headed to the buffet, ready to enjoy some treats, until she nearly choked on her food when she spotted Dao Ming walking toward her. Luckily, another girl came up to talk to him, giving her a moment of relief. Then Jing arrived with Wu Zi, and it was clear Wu Zi was planning to confess his love to her, just as his friends had predicted. They started dancing together, and as soon as the dance was over, he was about to confess his feelings, but Jing stopped him, saying she had something she needed to announce. She thanked everyone for coming to her birthday party, then declared she'd be giving up her position as the heir to her family's company to study law in France, where she wanted to help the poor. Her parents objected, but she apologized to them and even cut her hair on the spot to show she was serious and mature enough to make her own decisions. Seeing this, Wu Zi was heartbroken. He left the party in tears, and she ran after him to apologize, hugging him. Just then, 2 other girls came up to see him, so she returned to the party and started drinking heavily. Eventually, she left the party drunk, and Dao Ming saw her, initially thinking she was eavesdropping on him. She dismissed him, slurring, "Why are you pretending, you fake?" She suddenly leaned her head against him, and although he tried to push her away to avoid any misunderstandings, she ended up throwing up all over him. The next morning, she woke up confused about how she got home, but her aunt told her that Dao Ming had brought her. When she saw him at university, he asked her, "Aren't you going to say anything to me?" She acted nonchalant and replied, "You didn't apologize for what you did, so don't expect anything from me." He grabbed her by the collar and asked, "Are you happy now that Jing's leaving Wu Zi?" But the truth was, she wasn't happy at all. She went up to the rooftop to encourage Wu Zi to stop Jing from leaving if he really loved her. Sure, she was relieved at first, but seeing him downcast made her feel bad. She then spoke to Jing, urging her to reconsider. Jing, however, stood her ground, determined to pursue her dream, and left. Wu Zi happened to overhear this and angrily scolded her, telling her to mind her own business instead of meddling in his private matters. She tried explaining that she was only concerned for him, saying, "Don't be so petty, come on." Later, they were all at the train station, waiting to say goodbye to Jing. When Dao Ming showed up with a gift, Xiao insisted on seeing what was inside, but it turned out to be a silly prank. She thought to herself that Wu Zi would probably be happier if he was living freely like Xiao instead of being miserable over Jing. Dao Ming noticed her mood and asked, "Why are you so down?" She replied, "You wouldn't understand unless you've been in love with someone who's going through a tough time." When Jing arrived, everyone said their goodbyes, and right after, Wu Zi showed up. She got annoyed, asking him how he could come so late and miss the goodbye. Wu Zi, however, had taken her advice to heart and booked a seat on the next flight to France so he could see Jing again. He thanked her, giving her a quick kiss on the forehead. Xiao, who was watching, muttered to himself, "Seriously, it's just a forehead kiss. Chill out, you're acting like they're dating." As they watched the plane take off, Dao Ming tried to say something to her, but she couldn't hear over the noise of the aircraft. He didn't repeat himself and walked away. He had said, "Date me," without her realizing it. One day, Xiao received a message inviting him and our girl to play a game of bridge with them. She was nervous, knowing they'd likely lose, but Xiao seemed relaxed and confident. With some hesitation, she joined him. Dao Ming smirked and said, annoyed, she called him out, saying he was obnoxious for trying to intimidate them like that. Dao Ming spread the cards dramatically, showing off his skills as if he was some kind of joker. At first, she and Xiao were thrilled, thinking they'd won, but then Dao Ming pulled out the ace of spades and they started to worry. Xiao accidentally messed up the cards in his nervousness, secretly slipping the ace into his pocket without them noticing. Unfortunately, he got caught and she admitted defeat, asking what they wanted. Dao Ming's friends dragged Xiao off, leaving Dao Ming with her. She asked him what he wanted, and he simply pushed the table away and told her that all he wanted was for her to take him out to dinner. The next day, she went shopping with her mom, which made her late for her meeting with Dao Ming, who had been waiting for 4 hours in the rain. When she finally arrived, she asked him why he'd waited so long. As soon as he saw her, he hugged her tightly. She took him to eat at the cheapest restaurant she could find. Though he had been expecting they'd go somewhere fancy, or maybe up the tower. Every place they tried was closed. Finally, they took an elevator to go to a rooftop cafe, but the elevator was out of service, and they got stuck inside. His phone had died because he'd called her so many times, and her phone wasn't working either. They were left in silence until he fainted from a fever, which he'd gotten from waiting in the rain, and took care of him as best as she could while her family worried about her absence. The next morning, he woke up to see her sleeping beside him. She quickly stirred awake, reassuring him that he'd be fine and could go home soon where his mother would take care of him. But he shared that he hadn't seen his mother in years since she worked in London, and his father had passed away, leaving him to fend for himself. She felt sorry for him and realized why he acted out sometimes. She joked, and she said that he owed her now, which startled him. So she quickly clarified that she didn't mean it in any weird way. Just then, the maintenance workers opened the door and they were rescued. Back at university, her friends asked where she'd been all night, and then someone informed her that Dao Ming was looking for her. When he showed up, he handed her a bag, which she thought might be a gift, but it was just her jacket that she'd left behind. He draped it over her shoulders, and everyone assumed they'd spent the night together. Rumors spread that they were dating, and a girl who wanted to befriend her insisted they hang out together that night. At the nightclub, this new friend wanted to see if she'd introduce her to Dao Ming, assuming they weren't actually dating. To avoid the drama, she drank a little too much and suddenly spotted a foreign guy playing music, whom she mistook for Woozy. She sat next to him and told him she liked him. The next morning, she woke up in a strange hotel room, finding a message from the guy named Thomas, who had left early, not wanting to wake her. He left his number in case she wanted to reach out. Embarrassed, she muttered to herself about how this could ruin her reputation, then headed to university. Her professor was waiting for her, demanding to know where she'd been, but she dodged him and ran off. Just then, Thomas messaged her, telling her he was at the university, but wasn't sure where to meet her. She rushed out to find Thomas before he said anything to anyone. Just then, Dao Ming popped up and asked, "Looking for me?" She replied, "Do you think I have nothing else to do but deal with you?" He grinned and told her to sit down and eat, since she looked faint. She started eating quickly to get away, but Thomas called, saying he was near the cafeteria, so she had to get up. But Dao Ming, suspicious, asked, "Are you talking to a guy or what?" She brushed him off, saying, "Move, you're not my investigator." When she saw Thomas, she tried to clarify what happened. He reassured her that nothing happened. He just helped her since she was drunk. However, he admitted he was happy when she said she liked him last night and wanted to get to know her better. Just then, Dao Ming showed up and demanded to know, "Who is this and why are you with him?" She panicked, blurting out, "Oh, this is just my cousin. He was just looking for the restroom." But Dao Ming, still jealous, told Thomas, "I'm her boyfriend, so please back off." Surprised that she had a boyfriend, Thomas decided to leave. After he left, she turned to Dao Ming, frustrated, and snapped, "Boyfriend, now you're making me your girlfriend too?" Dao Ming, hurt by her comment, walked off. Unfortunately, a photo of her and Thomas spread around, and rumors started about her playing the field with both Dao Ming and Thomas. She called Dao Ming to clarify the situation, but he wasn't answering. Dao Ming, still upset, was at the pool, venting his anger by swimming laps. His friends sensed something was wrong, and when they saw the photo, they confronted her to hear her side. She explained everything, including how the photo had been shared without her consent. Together, they tried to figure out a way to get the photo taken down. Just then, Dao Ming walked in, suspicious, and grabbed her laptop to see the photo himself. Furious, he stormed out, but as he was heading toward her, he accidentally got drenched when a girl on the stairs spilled a bucket of water on him. When he finally approached her, she told him she didn't care about the rumors as long as he trusted her. Dao Ming, frustrated, asked, "Since when do you care about my opinion?" But he was clearly upset, so he left to walk around, ending up at the spot where he'd waited for her in the rain. There, her friend Jing found him sitting alone. He was in such a daze, he mistook her for his crush and let her take him home. When he finally snapped out of it, he tried to leave, but she begged him to stay. Jing was confused why he was so attached to someone with no wealth or outstanding looks, wondering if maybe he just wanted someone who would always be there for him. He even offered to be that person, but he told her not to compare herself to his girl and to let it go. Later, regretful for not trusting her, Dao Ming went to find her. He saw two guys trying to drag her somewhere and immediately stepped in, fighting them off and taking her home for safety. As he treated her wounds, she complained, "Can't you be a bit gentler, you brute?" He replied, "Is this how you thank me?" So she thanked him for helping, realizing he genuinely looked out for her. Then he asked if anything had happened between her and Thomas. She laughed, saying, "I don't even know him that well. How would anything happen between us?" Satisfied, he told her, "If something had happened, I would have been furious." She teased him, asking why he was so worked up. "Maybe it's because I like you or something." Shocked, she ran off, barely believing he'd actually said that. The next day, she went to confront her friend, only to discover it was her who had posted the picture of her and Thomas. The friend, feeling jealous, had even made sure Thomas would take her home that night. Though angry, she forgave her and admitted in class that the picture was posted by mistake. Later, Dao Ming came over with a new phone for her, but she refused it. saying she wanted her own back. He wouldn't return it and kept teasing her until Wozy showed up. Dao Ming announced, "She's my girlfriend now." Wozy asked if he was serious, and she quickly retorted, "Please step aside." When she got home, she found that Dao Ming had sent her some new appliances, so she met him at a cafe to demand he take them back, jokingly asking if he thought she was marrying him or something. While she was there, Wozy showed up with a new girl, presumably his girlfriend. Feeling hurt, she left, confused as to how he could move on from Jing so easily. A few days later, she went to talk to him on the rooftop, and he asked if she was really dating Dao Ming. She said no, it was all his idea. He smiled, saying, "Good, then we should date instead." She was startled, so he added, "But wouldn't it be fun to date secretly behind Dao Ming's back?" Confused by his playful advances, she started to walk away. He called after her, saying she looked even more beautiful lately. She left feeling puzzled, as if he had become a completely different person. One day, as she was leaving her lecture, Dao Ming suddenly appeared and dragged her to the airport, saying they were going on a trip. She was stunned and said, "Are you crazy? I didn't even tell my family." He replied that he had spoken to them and gotten their permission. Since it was just for the weekend, she reluctantly went along. On the plane, she was nervous and grabbed his arm during takeoff, only to quickly let go, embarrassed. When they arrived at the hotel with the whole crew, she was in awe of the view. Dao Ming casually said, "This is our room, but don't worry, we'll each have our own bed." He was respectful, only teasing her a little. As they got ready to sleep, he said, "Don't worry, I won't touch you as long as you don't have feelings for me." Then he lay down on the couch and said, "Don't worry, I won't touch you as long as you don't have feelings for me." Then he lay down on the couch and said he lay down on his own bed, which was a bit small. She offered to switch beds, but he refused, saying, "If you want this bed, come sleep next to me." She hurried back to her own bed, feeling shy. Later that night, she couldn't sleep, so she went for a walk along the beach. There, she found Wozy sitting alone, and they talked. He asked if he could hug her for 5 minutes, saying he felt down. "Why don't you let your new girlfriend hug you instead?" He admitted he couldn't get close to someone he didn't love, and explained how his relationship with Wozy was not easy. He said his relationship with Jing had fallen apart. While he once thought she cared for him, he now realized she had changed completely. At that moment, Dao Ming was frantically looking for her, thinking she might have drowned. When he finally found her, she explained she'd just gone for a walk and had forgotten her phone. The next day, Wozy's girlfriend was gossiping, saying he had spent the entire night at the beach, acting strangely. Someone asked him if he had run into Shan Cai, and he admitted they'd bumped into each other. Meanwhile, Kimen and Meizu stopped talking. They stumbled across news that Jing was getting married to a businessman in France. They realized this must have been the reason for Wozy's heartbreak. That evening, feeling bad for Wozy, Shan Cai went to comfort him, crying as she reassured him that he'd eventually find someone who truly cared about him. In the middle of this, he moved closer to her, but just then, Dao Ming arrived, furious, and hit him. She tried to explain that it wasn't what he thought, but Dao Ming stormed off, booked the next flight home, and left without her. Dao Ming coldly told Wozy they were no longer friends and ignored Shan Cai as well. Later, she met Wozy on the rooftop, where she brought him food as a peace offering. She apologized, blaming herself for the whole mess, but Wozy told her it wasn't her fault and asked her out on a proper date. When he picked her up from her home, her family was delighted, especially her aunt and uncle, who were impressed by his charm. As they walked together, he admitted that this was his first real date with a girl, as he usually can't be too happy about it. He apologized if he came off as boring, but she reassured him she enjoyed his company more than anyone else's. At one point, an older woman was almost hit by a cyclist, and Shan Cai quickly stepped in to protect her, yelling at the cyclist. The man became rude and almost hit her, but another woman stepped in just in time and insisted on taking Shan Cai to treat her injured hand. Shan Cai was shocked to realize that the woman was Dao Ming's sister. She tried to escape before Dao Ming showed up, but his sister wouldn't let her go. Dao Ming walked in, saw Shan Cai, and assumed she'd come to apologize. He angrily confronted her for leaving him like that, venting his frustration and demanding an explanation. Then his sister slapped him and told him she was definitely a bit of a control freak, but she insisted that Shan Cai join them for dinner and even have a drink. Although Shan Cai wasn't used to alcohol and could barely stand the smell, she ended up spilling all her feelings, admitting that she didn't feel worthy of Dao Ming because of her mistake with Wuzi. Dao Ming overheard everything and, feeling frustrated, joined her, upset that her actions had messed up their relationship. His sister comforted him, pointing out that Shang-Chi had shown courage that day by standing up for an elderly woman, and she ordered him to let Shang-Chi sleep in the guest room and treat her with more respect. Back at the university, Wuzi tried talking to Dao Ming, but Dao Ming snapped, saying, "You still have the nerve to speak to me?" He then decided to kick Wuzi out of their group and even offered his spot to Shang-Chi's friend. Shang-Chi tried to take responsibility, telling them it was all her fault and she didn't want their friendship to suffer. Wuzi, however, believed the opposite. He knew he was the one who had messed things up. To settle things, Dao Ming challenged Wuzi to a bridge game, but Shang-Chi stood by Wuzi, deciding to play alongside him. She even went to Dao Ming's house and told him she wanted to learn the game and join as well. Dao Ming hugged her and said, she countered by asking if he still loved Ying. He replied. When they arrived at the university to start the game, Shang-Chi and Wuzi held hands, which infuriated Dao Ming, who asked. They all agreed that if Wuzi and Shang-Chi won, Dao Ming would forgive them, but if they lost, Shang-Chi would leave the university. The game began, and they won the first 2 rounds. They were even confident they'd win the last one. But Dao Ming began to worry and decided to forfeit. Shan Cai was thrilled to win, though Dao Ming claimed he would have won if he hadn't withdrawn. She couldn't understand why he forfeited, but Wuzi pointed out the obvious. Dao Ming didn't want her to leave the university. Later, at Dao Ming's house, his sister invited everyone over. Meizu and Simon were reminiscing about their exes, and they jokingly asked Shan Cai if she remembered any of her ex's numbers, but she admitted she'd never dated anyone before. His sister teasingly asked Shan Cai how far she'd gone with Wuzi, and she replied that they'd only gone on 1 date. Dao Ming's sister decided to give them a private room to talk, which Wuzi agreed to, as he had many things to ask her. Inside, he tried to explain that he liked her, but wasn't in love with her, admitting that he was still trying to get over Jing and wasn't ready to move forward. He acknowledged that his friends were right. He was interested in Shan Cai because he was struggling to forget Jing. Shan Cai reassured him that her only concern was his happiness, and she didn't mind staying his close friend forever. He gently patted her head, thanking her for understanding. Meanwhile, outside, Dao Ming heard Meizu say, "I wonder what Shan Cai and Wuzi are doing alone in that room." Feeling jealous and wanting answers, he asked his sister where they were. She calmly told him they were upstairs together, but to her surprise, Dao Ming didn't storm off or cause a scene. He just stayed quietly stewing in his thoughts. The next day, Dao Ming's friend came to talk to him and admitted that years ago he had wronged Wuzi by taking his toy by force and had even wanted to bring his friends to bully him. Surprisingly, Wuzi hadn't gotten mad back then, so Dao Ming now wanted to return the favor and let go of Shan Cai. He met her at the university to return her books, which left her wondering at his sudden change of heart. Meanwhile, Wuzi also intended to step back from Shan Cai because Dao Ming was his old friend, but he didn't want to tell him right away, wanting him to suffer a little and understand her value. One day, Dao Ming announced to his friends that he was moving to London to settle there. Wuzi overheard and told him, "Don't worry, I'm not leaving because of you." At that moment, Shan Cai came in, visibly upset by Dao Ming's departure. So he decided to tease her more by saying, "Here's your chance to date him freely. I don't mind." She walked off in frustration, wishing he'd go off and enjoy himself with the blondes in London. She had recently started working at a Frankie's restaurant, and while she was distracted by thoughts of Dao Ming's words, she accidentally burned herself. Tian, her coworker, rushed over to put some gauze and cotton on her burn. Suddenly, a girl told her that there was a man outside who was causing a scene and refusing to leave until he saw her. Frankie, the manager, told Dao Ming this was a place of work and he couldn't act like that. And Shan Cai tried to say the same to get him to leave. But Dao Ming grabbed her hand and Frankie asked, "Who are you exactly to take her away?" Another fight almost broke out, but Shan Cai stopped it, telling Dao Ming to quit his behavior. Annoyed, he called himself an idiot for coming to say goodbye before leaving, then walked away, determined not to return. At the airport, Wuzi went to say something important to Dao Ming before he boarded. On the plane, Dao Ming fumed quietly, even wanting to leave mid-flight. But his sister slapped him, asking, "Where do you think you're going? This isn't bus number 6. When they arrived in London, Dao Ming was stomping around, wanting to go back, after Wazi admitted nothing had happened between him and Shang Ci, and that he'd realized she actually loved Dao Ming. Dao Ming tried calling Shang Ci at the restaurant, saying her dad wanted her home urgently. But when she found out it was him, she hung up. She thought he should enjoy himself in London instead. The next day at work, everyone was tense because Tian had a big cooking test that day, and he had to prepare fish. He'd left the food on the stove too long, so it was ruined, and time was running out before the chef came to taste it. Shang Ci stepped in to help him save the dish. But the sauce would take way too long to prepare. She remembered once using cameo leaves as a substitute for sauce, and suggested Tian buy some quickly while she started fixing the dish. She rushed out to buy the leaves, but on her way back, someone bumped into her, causing her to drop them, and another person even stepped on them. Luckily, she found a lady selling cameo leaves and bought some in time. She returned to the restaurant just as the chef came to taste the food, and thankfully, the chef loved the dish. The next day, Tian went to buy cameo leaves from the shop he frequented and noticed Shang Ci's card. Apparently, she hadn't been able to pay for the leaves because they were too expensive. So, she had left her card as collateral until she could come back and pay later. The shop assistant mentioned to him that she had also been in an accident recently, which made her seem even more admirable in his eyes. To thank her, Tian invited her to a meal, and they talked about their lives. He told her that his mother had passed away, and that he lived with his father, but was fighting hard to get through life. He felt they were similar, both struggling through hardships. After dinner, he walked her home and asked her to stay by his side whenever he was cooking. Of course, she took it as helping him in the kitchen, but then Dao Ming showed up and interrupted, saying, "Oh, sweetie, he doesn't just want you to help him cook. He wants you as his future girlfriend." He added that before she got too invested, she should know that Tian was the heir to a huge Chinese pharmaceutical company and was only pretending to be poor. She felt deceived by Tian's pretense and told him he had trivialized her own struggles. Tian explained he wasn't trying to downplay her difficulties. He was simply trying to fight back against his father. Dao Ming then barged into her home, claiming he'd come back from London to save her from being fooled. When her mother came out to welcome Dao Ming, her father was delighted to see him as well and offered him to rest in the guest room. But Dao Ming confidently walked into Shang Ci's room instead. She told him to get off her bed and stop taking over her space, but he just shrugged, saying, "What if I get thirsty? Who's going to bring me water?" He teased her further, asking if she'd held Tian's hand. Shang Ci denied it and told him to back off. The next day, as Shang Ci was changing in the bathroom, Dao Ming walked in without knocking, as if it were a barn. And even her mother came in after. Seeing them in an awkward position, her mom decided to lock the door on them, playfully saying, "Oops." Later at the restaurant, Shan Cai helped Tian again. He explained the misunderstanding, saying he only wanted people to value him for who he was, not for his wealth. She understood his point and wasn't angry anymore. When Shan Cai got home, her family was in a frenzy because her father had lost 1,000,000 yuan in an investment and faced jail time if they couldn't pay it back. Her mother was crying, not caring about wealth, but worried that he wouldn't be there with them. Dao Ming saw her mom crying and decided to help, handing Shan Cai his credit card. She refused, but he asked if she wanted her dad to go to jail, insisting she could pay it back later. Shan Cai, unsure how she could repay such a huge amount, hesitated, so Dao Ming told her to meet him after university the next day. After class, she went to his place and he stepped closer, suggesting a faster way to repay him. She slapped him, tearfully saying, "I'm an honorable woman. Take your money. I don't need it." He laughed, telling her to stop thinking the worst of him. His plan was for her to enter a cooking competition, where the winner would receive 1,000,000 yuan. As she looked over the entry requirements, he kept teasing her and pulled her closer, making her realize just how manipulative he could be. Then he told her to pay him back, but not to forget the interest. She asked how much he wanted, but all he requested was a kiss on the cheek. Honestly, if it were me, I'd slap him and run. But she kissed him quickly and ran off, still playing the role of the helpless damsel. My sister decided to help train her more for the competition, since she also worked in the culinary field, and even invited her to stay with them for a while. A real recovery retreat for her. At night, he would gaze at her beauty while she slept, deprived of her presence during the day. She started cooking for him to taste her dishes, feeling like she'd become a top chef. But one day, Tian told her that his father wanted him to marry a rich girl named Sena, who loved him, though he didn't feel the same way. It turned out Sena was also entering the competition to impress him, which made Shan Cai feel like she'd never win. She packed her bags and tried to leave Dao Ming's house, but he stopped her and said, "Where do you think you're going? You're just using this as an excuse to run away." She told him to stay out of it, that she'd pay him back the money since she wouldn't win anyway and was letting everyone down. "By doing this, you're disappointing me, too." He dragged her to his room, but she resisted. He reassured her, "Come on, I'm not going to kidnap you," and brought her some water. Then he suggested they play a bit, but with honorable intentions, just a card game. When she lost, he drew on her face, but stopped as he watched her close her eyes, savoring the moment. Suddenly, he leaned in and told her to have more confidence. He was certain she could win the competition. As he got close, he realized she was even more beautiful up close. The next morning, he tried to take a picture of her while she was sleeping so he could tease her later. When she woke up and found out, she yelled at him, demanding he delete the awful photo. On the day of the competition, she was ready, and Dao Ming and his friends sat watching, confident in her abilities. The judges tasted each dish to decide who would make it to the next round, choosing 6 contestants, including Shan Cai. In the next round, they had to prepare pastries. Sena's pastries impressed the judges, but when they tasted Shan Cai's, they found them unusual. She remembered Dao Ming's sister's advice to be confident, so she told the judges to take a picture of her. After the judges, her recipe was inspired by a woman who made it for her sick husband, filled with the care and love she put into it. Moved, the judges appreciated her personal touch and announced the 3 finalists, including Shan Cai. The final round was tougher. They had only 45 minutes to finish the dish. Shan Cai felt anxious, but Dao Ming, in his usual loud way, encouraged her to focus and pick her ingredients quickly since time was running out. After the judges tasted each dish, they were impressed by Sena's recipe, but found Shan Cai's recipe to be more interesting. Shan Cai's dish to be a simple one that anyone could make. Unfortunately, Sena was announced as the first place winner. However, the judges made an exception this time and awarded Shan Cai $500,000 for her hard work and impressive cooking skills. Shan Cai was ecstatic, thanking everyone who supported her. At Dao Ming's house, they celebrated together. Shan Cai thanked them all for their support, and Dao Ming decided to ask her out for the next day in front of everyone. Embarrassed by the public invitation, she suggested they all go out as a group, but one by one, the others made excuses to leave them alone. Dao Ming turned to her and said, "See? Looks like I'm the only one left for you." The next day, she was on her way to meet him, but saw a young boy who had fallen. She helped him up, and he handed her a note from his mom, who happened to be her neighbor. The note explained that his mother had to leave for work and asked if she could look after him. He commented that not only was she late, but she'd brought a kid along. She apologized, asking him to put up with it for a while, so they took the boy to the zoo. Dao Ming realized she was more focused on the boy than him, which made him feel a little neglected. At one point, the boy commented on how ugly a monkey looked, and Dao Ming joked, "Not as ugly as you," but was kind enough to carry the boy on his shoulders so he could see the animals better. When the boy eventually fell asleep, she tried to take his teddy bear so he could rest comfortably. She then asked Dao Ming why he always helped her and spent time with her. Exasperated, he finally blurted out, "I'm honestly tired of dealing with your cluelessness," and walked off, leaving her with the boy. He was probably right. If only she'd understood him better. At work later, her boss sent her to meet a group of handsome customers who wanted something from her. She tried to brush them off, saying she was busy, but they insisted on helping her with her tasks in exchange for a favor. They charmed the girls into coming in to shop, proving that good looks are excellent marketing. Because of the high sales that day, she and her friend received a bonus. Her friends teased her about coming with them to Canada, saying she had no excuse now, but she hesitated, thinking about her argument with Dao Ming and how awkward it would be to run into him there. That night, Dao Ming called her, mentioning he'd heard she was planning to go to Canada, and telling her he didn't think she should go unless he was going too. She replied that he should mind his own business and posted a photo with her friend, adding a caption about how nice it was that annoying people weren't coming along. Determined to keep her friends from crashing her trip, She hinted to them that her dad hadn't exactly paid for this, so they couldn't just barge in. But they cheekily responded. When they arrived in Canada, guess who they saw waiting for them? Yes, Dao Ming himself. She stayed silent, glaring at him, and they continued with the trip, while her friend teased them to stop the cheap flirting. Back at the lodge, Woozy was furious with the others for putting her in danger by making her go out into the storm, and he even threw wine in their faces, threatening to kick them out. In the cabin, Chance was still freezing because her clothes were wet. Dao Ming, realizing this could worsen her condition, took off his own clothes and asked her to do the same. He turned away to give her some privacy, then wrapped her in a blanket with him just to keep her warm. Although she was hesitant, she knew he wasn't thinking anything inappropriate. He just wanted to keep her from freezing. The next day, the rescue team found them and joked. Dao Ming carried her back to the lodge, confronted the troublemakers, and declared it was time for some consequences. He wanted to throw them out, but they begged Chance for forgiveness, saying they had nowhere else to go. She allowed them to stay if they helped clean the house. Later, when they were resting, Dao Ming's friends teased him about how they had spent the night in the cabin, hinting that it must have been like a romantic movie. Shaman and Mizu couldn't resist making jokes, with Mizu saying, "Hold me in your arms, my love." Dao Ming blushed and hurried off, only to be teased again for going to the wrong side of the bathroom. That night, they were celebrating New Year's, and Dao Ming finally got a moment alone with her. He hinted that he wanted her to tell him something, but she, being clueless, thought he was asking for the remaining $500,000 she owed him. Frustrated, he told her to just keep living in her bubble. When the fireworks went off, he confessed his feelings. Even though she didn't really hear him, it felt good to finally get it off his chest. One day, they had a reunion with their high school friends, where she ran into Jiabao, who had a crush on her back then. He complimented her, saying she looked even more beautiful now. Dao Ming was initially unaware, but Shiman pointed out that Chance and Sherry were at a party with their friends and had even posted a photo. Dao Ming showed up at the party uninvited, not letting her breathe for a moment. During a drinking game, Jiabao noticed she was uncomfortable and was about to take her drink for her, playing this chivalrous act. However, Dao Ming stepped in, took the drink from her and said, "Why would you drink something so disgusting?" Jiabao, surprised, asked him who he was, and Dao Ming replied, "I'm her boyfriend. Do you have a problem?" Chance quickly clarified that he wasn't her boyfriend, and Jiabao, putting an arm around her, told Dao Ming he should back off if he was bothering her. Dao Ming brushed Jiabao's arm off and pulled her aside to talk. However, when he started insulting her friends, calling them annoying, she told him to watch his words and not disrespect them. Even Jiabao stood up for her, saying, "If we're that annoying, maybe you should leave." Dao Ming lashed out and ended up getting into a fight, eventually landing in the hospital. Chance was furious, slapped him, and told him he'd crossed the line. She said if he thought her friends were annoying, then he must see her the same way. She had a point. His friends scolded him too, telling him he needed to apologize to her since he had overreacted. The next time he saw her, she was talking to Shiman, and he instructed Shiman to apologize to her as soon as she approached. Dao Ming called out to her, but she ignored him, clearly not planning to forgive him so easily. Later, in the library, she struggled to reach a book on a high shelf. But just then, she saw Jiabao's younger brother, Shan Bing, and was delighted to run into him. Shan Bing told her he hadn't seen her in ages, not since she used to deliver food to their house. He always liked seeing her around until he heard Dao Ming talking about her, mocking her as dumb, and saying he could never fall for someone like her. Shan Bing couldn't hold back and called Dao Ming an idiot. She quickly pulled Shan away before a fight could break out. Later, they were eating together when Dao Ming walked by. Shan decided to annoy him by chatting with her more intensely, reassuring her she didn't need to worry about Dao Ming as he'd protect her. Just then, Dao Ming came over and said, "Oh, so you're hanging around with a guy like this now?" She snapped, telling him once again to stay out of her life. Shan, still angry, said, "She's my girlfriend. Why do you care?" Dao Ming grabbed Shan by his shirt, and they almost fought, but she intervened to stop them. As they were leaving, Dao Ming told her he'd never stop loving her, no matter how much she pushed him away. Shan just laughed and said, "He's crazy. You should ignore him." One day, she was out with Shan Bing, who advised her to stay away from Dao Ming, saying his behavior was out of line. Although she knew he was overprotective sometimes, she believed Dao Ming had a good heart. Shan went to get her a drink, but while he was away, some men approached her. When he returned, she was gone. Xiao and Dao Ming's friends noticed her absence and informed him that she was missing. She had been kidnapped, and they sent Dao Ming a photo showing her tied up and beaten. Shan Bing recognized the gang and asked to speak with them alone. It turned out he had connections with them, but the gang leader had an old grudge against Dao Ming because he once broke his leg. They wanted revenge, but assured her they wouldn't harm her. They only wanted Dao Ming to suffer. The gang leader sent Dao Ming the photo, threatening that they would deal with her if he didn't come. Although she doubted he'd come since they weren't in a relationship, Dao Ming showed up, ordering them to stay away from her. They beat him badly until the police arrived. When she woke up in the hospital, Wuzi was sitting silently nearby. When she entered the room, they told her Dao Ming had died. She broke down crying, regretting everything that had happened. Then Dao Ming suddenly laughed, saying, "Who visits a patient without bringing some fruit?" Furious, she jumped on him, wanting to strangle him for scaring her like that. His friends laughed and left them to argue alone. When she calmed down, he teased her for just sitting there, stunned. She admitted she regretted what had happened to him and had even dreamed about him. He said, "Then come visit me every day." She retorted that she wasn't his personal nurse, but he laughed, saying he'd pay her a good salary if she came. Annoyed, she told him he was always thinking about money. One day, she was on the rooftop with Wuzi, who noticed her wound looked infected. He put a bandage on it for her. Just then, Dao Ming arrived, commenting on how cozy they looked. Wuzi stood up, saying, "I didn't tell her what you wanted me to. Tell her yourself." Leaving them alone, Dao Ming finally told her his birthday was coming up and that she needed to bring a gift and dress nicely because his mother would be at the party, and he wanted them to meet. On his birthday, his friends caught her and insisted on helping her find an outfit suitable for the occasion. After all, there would be politicians and business people there, as his mother would be looking to make some important connections. As the party began, people were giving him extremely expensive gifts. She started to feel out of place, like her own gift was worthless. She tried to avoid handing it over, but someone pulled her hand awkwardly, and it fell to the ground. His mother arrived just then, and Dao Ming helped her up, introducing her to his mother as the girl he loved. His mother was stunned and asked if he realized what he was saying. She couldn't believe he'd choose someone without a family background or connections. Wuzi quickly lied, saying her father was a company executive responsible for projects in North Africa and the UAE. Sensing the lie, Dao Ming's mother asked her to play the piano, assuming if she was truly wealthy, she'd know how to play. Nervous since she hadn't played in ages, she went to the piano and started playing. To everyone's surprise, she played beautifully. After finishing, she admitted that she wasn't from a wealthy family and that all she could offer was this simple song. His mother was offended by her audacity and wanted her to leave. Dao Ming, angered by his mother's reaction, decided to leave with her. He grabbed Shimon's car keys and walked off, even though his mother warned he'd regret it. They drove to a hotel his family owned, wanting privacy to talk. He confided in her that he wasn't close to his mother because he barely saw her and that he wouldn't let her interfere in his life. She was surprised he was telling her all of this. He explained that she was everything to him and it was only natural to share things like this with her. Then, as they watched the stars together, he moved closer, almost hugging her, and asked if she had thought about her feelings for him. She still felt unsure, wondering why he would choose her out of all the other girls, as she felt ordinary and lacked any special talents. He smiled and said, "Maybe you're just one of a kind in my eyes." She blushed at his silly comment and hesitated to give him her gift. Finally, she gathered the courage and presented it, a box of homemade pastries shaped to match his various moods, like when he was angry or happy. He said he would have been even happier if she'd given it to him sooner. She still felt it was a simple gift, but to him, it held far more meaning. Later, Dao Ming's mother showed up at her family's home, offering them 5 million yuan to make her leave him. Her mother was outraged and refused to let someone come in and try to buy her daughter's love. Her father intervened, saying it was rude to treat a guest that way, but he jokingly threatened to throw water on her as well, so Dao Ming's mother left feeling frustrated. However, she wasn't done yet. She decided to teach her a lesson she wouldn't forget. She dragged herself to the bathroom and asked her son to attend a proposal to a rich, beautiful girl, hoping he would realize he could do better. But even the girl was hesitant about the marriage. At that moment, Chancy walked in to serve food. Dao Ming's mother had planned this to humiliate her. However, the girl Xiaoju rejected the proposal herself and walked out. Dao Ming followed, but in his confusion, he accidentally grabbed Xiaoju instead of Chancy and rushed her out of the room. Once outside, he turned to see her and exclaimed, "Who are you? You're the one who dragged me out here." Then, she playfully grabbed him and bit his ear. The next day, Chancy went to congratulate him on his engagement, calling him immature for claiming to love her and then choosing a wealthy girl. He couldn't explain himself and just watched her leave. Outside, she ran into Xiaoju, who admitted she didn't want to marry him either, but after what he did, she started to like him. Relationships that began with a bit of hate. Just then, Dao Ming showed up, clearly annoyed, and wanted to argue with her about biting him the day before. But Xiaoju said, "I'm interested in you now, so get ready, we're getting married soon." Then, Xiaoju grabbed Chancy for coffee. Her real intention was to propose a plan. Since she was intrigued by Dao Ming but still unsure of him, she asked Chancy to help her test him. She suggested that Chancy try to attract him to see if he was truly faithful. If he didn't fall for it, then it meant he really loved Chancy. But if he did, they would both leave him, seeing him as fickle and easily swayed by any girl. Since his relationship with Chancy started with hatred and turned into love, it could easily happen again with Xiaoju if their relationship began with dislike. Later, Chancy told Dao Ming she'd met with Xiaoju and found her to be smart, sincere, and beautiful. She admitted that maybe his mother was right in choosing her as a match, and that he should be happy if he promised her. Dao Ming felt anxious because it seemed like Chancy wasn't interested in him anymore, and he walked away, hurt. A few days later, Xiaoju met Chancy with a huge grin and hugged her, announcing, "Dao Ming agreed to date me." She asked Chancy if she thought he would forget her so quickly, and if Xiaoju could really replace her. She was happy since she liked him and forgot about her agreement with our girl. But it's no big deal. Our girl will remain strong. Nothing can shake her. Even his friends were surprised at how calm she was. But what could she do? Surely she wouldn't beg him to come back to her. What was frustrating, though, was how Xiaoji would come to her every day, sharing stories about her time with him. I mean, the girl wasn't obligated to listen to their adventures. Our girl would share all of this with Yuzi, who couldn't believe how Xiaoji could talk about their relationship, knowing she was his ex. One day, she saw them passing by, arguing. She was about to leave, but overheard Dao Enji telling him, "Kiss her if you really want to prove you don't love Chancy anymore and have moved on." She stopped to listen, hoping he wouldn't do it, but he kissed her. Later, while sitting with Zuzi in a cafe, Dao Anji walked in with Xiaoji. Our girl dragged Zuzi to sit with them. As usual, Xiaoji wouldn't stop talking about their relationship, and he scolded her to make her stop, then told them about a resort in the mountains, owned by her family, and invited them to join her there. Our girl refused, but Zuzi accidentally agreed, so she ended up going. While they were there, Zuzi got up to do something, so our girl asked Dao Anji, "Is this the same guy she said was dumb and quiet, but that she loves anyway?" He confirmed, yeah, she's always loved him. Then, Xiaoji dragged her into the sauna, where she wouldn't stop rambling. She went on and on. Poor Chancy didn't understand why Xiaoji was so obsessed with him until she passed out. When she fainted, our girl screamed for Dao Anji, telling him Xiaoji had passed out in the bathroom while undressed. By the time she got out, Zuzi had already carried her to her room. When Xiaoji woke up, she asked him how he brought her there while she was naked. Of course, he told her he had dressed her. What else would he do? She told him, "I wish we hadn't come here. Why do I have to hear about their relationship all the time?" He told her, "You can go break down his door if you want." Meanwhile, Dao Anji was frustrated from the fact that she was so upset with him. Dao Anji said, "So upset with him." Meanwhile, Dao Anji was frustrated from overthinking. Xiaoji told him she wanted to live with him in his house, but he refused. She said it didn't matter, then pulled him into bed. He made her get dressed and told her it wasn't appropriate. She threw a tantrum, stomping and crying because he wouldn't give her a chance. Our girl overheard and thought he was forcing Xiaoji into something. But when she entered the room, she found him lying on the floor with Xiaoji on top of him. She quickly left, regretting coming there in the first place. The next day, she stood there cursing her luck after hearing that they had spent the night together. She asked Xiaoji to turn his back so she could lean on him. She wanted to cry without anyone seeing. When she returned home, her family was packing to return to their village, where they planned to work and pay off their debt. Afterward, Xiaoji showed up again, because what else is new? But this time, she came to say that nothing had happened between them the night before. She decided to break up with him, realizing he didn't love her at all. She asked our girl to stay friends with her because she genuinely liked her and hoped she and Juzi would get back together and live happily. Before leaving, Xiaoji told her, "Do you know why I broke up with him? Because he said the only person he thinks about is you." Even Juzi went to his mother to tell her he was leaving Xiaoji because he loved Shan Cai. It turned into a huge argument that didn't end. Meanwhile, our girl had invited all her friends over. They told her, "You know who's missing? Dao and Ji." But she replied, "The house is small. I don't need extra people." Then, the extra guests showed up, interrupting their gathering. She accused her of being a hypocrite and trying to keep her son away from Xiaoji, insulting her and her family. But our girl couldn't hold it in anymore and said, "What? Is it just you and your son in this world? You only measure people by money and looks. Let me tell you, sophistication has never been about wealth. It's people like you with shallow minds who set these values. Now get out," without saying another word. Everyone applauded her for standing up for her. She said, "I don't need extra people." But one day, the landlord showed up and told her he had sold the house because his daughter was sick and he needed the money. He offered to refund her rent and compensate her, but she had to leave immediately. She packed her things and left, feeling heartbroken. She even asked her mom if life in the village was any good. Meanwhile, our guy's friends told him about what had happened between Shan Cai and his mom. He couldn't believe it and rushed out, determined to be with her, humming a song like, "I'll challenge the world with you by my side." His friends asked, "Why the hurry? Aren't you afraid of your mom?" But he didn't care. His priority was staying by Shan Cai's side. When he got to her place, she was sitting outside. He hugged her, saying he knew everything and wouldn't leave her again. He then noticed all the bags and asked, "What's with all the luggage?" She explained she had been evicted and planned to stay at a friend's place. A friend? Why stay with a friend when your boyfriend's house is open? She was hesitant, especially after her argument with his mom, but she went along. When she met his grandmother, he introduced her as his girlfriend and said she would be living there. The grandmother asked her to clean the house and cook in exchange for staying there. Doinji yelled, "How can you say that? She's not a maid." The grandmother clarified, "She's not a servant. She'll just work." Surprisingly, Shan Cai agreed, saying she had always worked for her living and didn't accept charity. Doinji was frustrated, saying, "Are you crazy too? I brought you here because you're my girlfriend." She replied, "Let me decide for myself. It's my choice." She began working just like the other girls at the house. One morning, she brought him milk, only to find him sleeping shirtless. She thought to cover him with a blanket, but ended up falling into his arms as he pulled her close, pretending to be asleep. He eventually got up, drank the milk, and confessed he had been worried she might end up with Xu Shi, which is why he left Xiaoji and stood up to his mom. She assured him that wasn't the case. He teased her, saying, "Didn't you say you'd stand up to my mom? Don't go back on your word now, kitten." One day, she prepared food, and he invited her to eat with him. She refused, fearing his grandmother's reaction, but he insisted, so she invited the other girls working with her to join them, saying he agreed, but then whispered. She stayed in her room, worried he might come at any moment, even though she had locked the door. She imagined him breaking it down, creating a scene. She thought about escaping, but didn't get far before he caught her. He had been waiting for her to come out for an hour. "The era of shyness is over. You're coming with me now." But he surprised her by taking her to see the stars and meteors. He asked her to make a wish, then gave her a gift, a necklace he had prepared for their relationship's beginning. As he leaned in to kiss her, she hesitated, fearing she couldn't love him as much as he loved her. He reassured her, "It doesn't matter who loves more. What matters is that I love you, and you trust me." He suggested they try dating for a month, to which she replied, shocked. He asked. She teased. The next day, while cleaning his room, he reminded her, "Aren't you forgetting something important?" She told him she agreed to date him for a month, but warned that if she felt she couldn't love him, she would leave on her own. He was thrilled, saying the final result didn't matter. What mattered was that they were trying. The important thing is, they're officially a couple now. Congratulations, buddy. At university, the moment he saw her, he went to get her so they could eat together. And soon, all their friends knew they were in a relationship, but she felt uneasy because so many people were staring at her. He brushed it off, saying it was normal, and he wasn't going to let her break up with him over something so trivial. At home, she brought fruit for him and his friends. He wanted her to feed him directly, and as soon as she did, Mizo and Shimmy opened their mouths too, expecting the same. He shut them down, saying, seizing the moment, she asked him to go out with her, but not alone. She wanted him to come along with her, her friend, and her friend's boyfriend. It was like a double date, but he wasn't on board. She didn't know them and sulked. She brushed it off, saying she'd go alone then. When the day came, she told her friend and her friend's boyfriend that Dao Wenji was busy and couldn't make it. She also decided to leave so she wouldn't feel awkward being the odd one out. To her surprise, he showed up. He couldn't say no to her after all. However, her friend's boyfriend turned out to be a pest, asking intrusive questions no one would dare to ask. Dao Wenji finally snapped and asked her, "How does your friend even tolerate this guy? He's so annoying." Later, they went to a haunted house attraction. Though Dao Wenji objected to everything at first, he eventually agreed and reassured her, "Don't worry, none of this is real." Ironically, he was the first one to scream. When they came out, Sherry's boyfriend went to buy a drink, but annoyed Dao Wenji again, mocking him, saying he was too childish to join them for a drink. Dao Wenji walked off to grab something to cool off before he lost his temper. That's when he saw the guy flirting with two girls. The boyfriend had a crush on Sherry, but he didn't want to. Dao Wenji had the audacity to suggest, "What do you think of these two? Why don't you pick one, instead of sticking with your boring girlfriend?" That was the final straw. Dao Wenji punched him for being a two-timer. When Chansey and Sherry arrived and asked what was going on, he refused to explain. Frustrated, Chansey followed him home and asked his friends, "Where's the one who acts like a tough guy and keeps hitting people?" Fozzie told her he was in the bathroom, and like a fool, she opened the door on him. Of course he wasn't dressed. When he came out, she scolded him for embarrassing her in front of her friend. She wanted him to apologize, but he retorted, "My bad, I guess. May the Lord grant him patience to deal with this," and walked off, leaving her upset. The next day, while she was apologizing to Sherry, they overheard her boyfriend telling someone, "My girlfriend is so boring and uptight, she won't even let me kiss her." Chansey was stunned, but didn't hesitate. She punched him in the stomach, standing up for herself. Shimon saw Sherry crying on the street and tried to comfort her. He then decided to get back at that guy for hurting her. Coincidentally, Dao Enji was also there, and they both confronted him together. The guy's irritating attitude triggered Dao Enji, and he ended up punching him again. When they stepped outside, Dao Enji turned to Chansey and said, "So, what do you think now?" She sarcastically replied, "Think about what, you idiot? You punched the guy and walked off without saying a word." Shimon and Sherry, fed up with the conversation, constant bickering, decided to leave together. Chansey turned to Dao Enji and demanded, "Where are you taking my friend?" He teased her. "Relax. He likes bold girls. He's not going to eat your friend." Still, she worried her friend might fall for Shimon. Dao Enji snapped, "I wish you cared about our relationship a fraction as much as you care about everyone else's." He was starting to feel insecure, unsure if she truly loved him. With their dating trial nearing its end, he feared she might leave him. But then she hugged him and said she wanted their relationship to be official. Overwhelmed, he took her home, joking that they needed to check her mental state to make sure she wouldn't come back later, claiming she wasn't in her right mind when she said that. Later, she was helping him study and quizzing him from the book, since they had an important lecture the next day. She complimented him, saying, "Bravo, see, you're smart." He replied cheekily, "Where's my sweet reward, Miss Memes?" and pulled her closer before she could escape. At university, the professor was reviewing their thesis and asked a question, which our guy confidently answered. After the lecture, she was a bit anxious about the results. Then a girl came up to her saying, "Lucky you, your boyfriend helps you study." Apparently, Mr. Popular had made their relationship public on social media, creating quite a buzz. She confronted him about why he'd talk so casually about their relationship online. He simply replied, "You're my girlfriend. Of course I'd want to tell the world about us. Instead of thanking me for helping you yesterday, you're here nagging me." She argued back, saying she helped him too, and he admitted he had been meaning to thank her as well. He then invited her to go out with him. While they were out, he revealed that he planned to move to London after graduation. She asked if he'd ever return, But instead of answering, he teased, "Shouldn't you be begging me to stay by your side forever?" She fired back, "Well, if I did say that, would you actually stay?" One day, after leaving university, he caught up with her and asked where she was headed. She told him she was going home to sell some old clothes she no longer needed and had some housework to do. He offered to call his grandmother to give her the day off, but she refused, saying she was an employee and couldn't just skip work. At the house, the girls working there started rushing around because Madame Dowanji's mother had arrived. Panicked, she tried to gather her things before getting caught. Unable to figure out where to hide, she crawled under the table just as the mother entered. Unfortunately, her phone rang, and Madame Dowanji, who forbids the use of phones during work, followed the sound and told her to come home. When she saw her, Madame Dowanji was shocked. "Aren't you the one who turned down 5 million and acted all self-righteous? And now you're working in my house?" The housekeeper came to her defense, explaining that she'd been working there for a while and had proven to be hard-working. She even noted how her presence had been good for Dowanji, who now studied regularly and was much happier than usual. But his mother wasn't swayed. She wanted her gone regardless. The housekeeper firmly stood her ground, telling Madame Dowanji that she wouldn't let her leave. However, the mother reminded her that she was the homeowner and had the final say about who stays and who goes. That's when the housekeeper reminded her not to forget that she was also Dowanji's grandmother, not just a housekeeper. She explained that Dowanji's grandfather had written in his will that she was to remain in charge of the household. Our girl started crying, and the grandmother comforted her, saying, "Stop crying already. I saved you, and you're not going anywhere." Once things settled down, the grandmother wanted to understand how the girl ended up working with them. She explained that when she was 19, she was deep in debt, and Dowanji's grandfather helped her by giving her a job in the household. Over time, she became an integral part of the family, even raising Dowanji. But after Dowanji's father passed away, everything changed. Dowanji often came home beaten and miserable. This was the first time she'd seen him happy, and it was because of this girl. She decided to protect her and ensure no one could force her to leave. The girl, trying to act composed, pretended she was very busy and important. The grandmother laughed and said, "Hold it right there. Don't make me lose my temper with you." She stood there, listening to the grandmother's plan. It turned out she wanted them to get married secretly without his mother knowing, and then drop the bombshell afterward, leaving her no choice but to accept it. She thought to herself, "Granny, are you planning my entire life too?" Later, when they went out, he suggested looking for a new house together, but she shut that down quickly. "No, you're coming with me and you're staying quiet," she told him, dragging him off for a game to burn off some energy. After they finished, he teased her. "You're so competitive, even when playing games. Who's going to want to marry someone like you?" She retorted, "Go find yourself a soft-spoken girl and marry her then." He laughed, knowing he was only teasing her. After all, he wasn't interested in anyone else. By chance, they started talking about her family, and she mentioned how her parents had moved abroad to pay off their debts. He frowned and asked, "Why don't you ever rely on me for anything? Am I not good enough?" She explained that she didn't want to drag him into her problems. She believed their relationship needed to be balanced, where both of them put in equal effort. If she started relying on him too much, that balance would be disrupted. Then she surprised him by pulling him in for a kiss. Things were heating up now. The next day, she was pacing around, talking to herself, still in disbelief that she had been the one to kiss him first. By sheer coincidence, Juzi overheard her monologue and said, "Ah, so that's why he's been laughing like a fool all day." She brushed it off, saying, "It's not a big deal. Everyone kisses each other casually as a form of greeting. In that case, go ahead and kiss me too," he joked, grinning. Her face turned bright red, and she shoved a shoe in his face to shut him up. Moving on, he informed her that he had overheard something concerning. Zia's family and her boyfriend had signed contracts with Dao Ming's mom, and he suspected she might use it against them to cause trouble. Worried, she decided to check on them and also on Sherry, who had been missing for a while. When she asked Jin about Zia, she was told he had just left because of some family issue. When she caught up with him, he revealed that his father was facing a lawsuit and things were falling apart. She then went to check on Sherry, only to find out that her father was being transferred for work outside of China. Frustrated by all the chaos, she decided to put an end to it. She called her assistant and ordered them to cancel everything her mother-in-law had instructed them to do. However, she set one condition in return. Her mother-in-law had to stay away from her son. The mother-in-law, unimpressed, called her arrogant. Do you think the whole world bows down to you just because you're richer than everyone else? That doesn't make you better than us. Calm but firm, she shot back. You're nothing but a cheap, heartless woman. That's all you'll ever be. She walked away, gathering her clothes from the house, ready to return to her village. Dao Ming showed up and told her to come inside because it was raining. She told him she couldn't stay with him anymore and was going back to her village. He begged her to explain what had happened. We were just happy together. What changed? She confessed that his mother had hurt her friends and that she couldn't continue being selfish by staying with him. He yelled, telling her to forget his mother and rely on him instead. He would protect her. But she had already made up her mind. To push him away, she said hurtful things she didn't mean, even claiming she didn't love him. She told him she was leaving and walked away. At the university, his friends couldn't understand why she had disappeared so suddenly. Josie suspected it was because of what Dao Ming had said to her. Then Jia showed up, furious, blaming Dao Ming for her disappearance. Because of you, she's homeless and has nowhere to go, he shouted. Dao Ming, overwhelmed, shouted back, I have enough problems of my own. Her absence had affected him deeply. Even when a girl approached him with a cake to confess her feelings, he rejected her harshly, throwing the cake in her face. Meanwhile, she was in her village, helping her family. She told her parents she had returned because she missed them, not because of her breakup. Dao Ming was struggling. His friends gathered to cheer him up, joking around and trying to lift his spirit. But he snapped at them, saying, Stop pretending, you're all boring. Josie tried to stop him, saying, We're trying to help you. What's bothering you so much? Dao Ming, however, felt like they were all just putting on a show. Josie finally lost his patience and said, She didn't leave you for no reason. It's because of your stupid personality. This led to a physical fight between the two until they both calmed down. Dao Ming walked away in silence, trying to cool off. Back in the village, she was helping her mother in their family restaurant, cooking her own recipes. One day, the owner of the building approached them, saying she wanted to partner with them and wouldn't charge rent anymore. Her mother refused, saying her daughter's recipes weren't for sale and that she didn't want anyone else to know them. But she suggested they wait, as her daughter could easily come up with new recipes. Both parties agreed, and everything went smoothly. As time passed, she became very successful at the restaurant. Customers were amazed by her cooking, taking videos of her as she worked. One of these videos went viral, and Dao Ming saw it online by chance. He was proud of her, but also deeply emotional. Josie decided to tell him where she was, urging him to go see her. But Dao Ming was angry. Why should I go? She left me so easily. If you want to see her, go by yourself. Don't drag me into it. The next day, Josie went to see her in the village. I'm here to take you back home, he told her. She invited him to eat with her family. Embarrassed, she didn't know what to say. Josie explained to her parents that she had been away from university for too long and couldn't go to school. She couldn't stay in the village any longer, even if she wanted to. Later, as they walked together, he told her. Josie didn't understand why she couldn't just tell Dao Ming her fears, but she loved him too much to burden him. She knew their relationship wouldn't survive because of his mother, so there was no point in giving him false hope. Dao Ming, unaware of her reasoning, continued to watch her videos obsessively, his heart breaking. Eventually, she returned to the city with Josie. While looking for a place to rent, she discovered that Dao Ming's friends had already taken care of everything and had prepared a space for her. Don't worry, they told her. We've got it all sorted out. When they arrived, her friends were waiting for her, along with Xiaoji, and they had prepared the apartment for her. They even bought the furniture at their own expense. They all sat down to celebrate together, and she felt happy to have friends who cared for her and worried about her. Meanwhile, Dao Ming saw the photos she had posted with them, showing her smiling and having a great time while he was drowning in his sadness. At university, Ximin asked Wuzi about where Chelsea was, hoping to tell Dao Ming, but Wuzi refused, saying he wouldn't reveal her location unless Dao Ming asked him directly. Even when Dao Ming showed up, he warned Mizu not to speak. When they were leaving, they ran into her outside. She quickly ran off, not ready to face him. Josie, however, had had enough. He asked Dao Ming to meet him alone for a talk. He asked if Dao Ming planned to get back with Chelsea, but Dao Ming replied, "Since when do you care about other people's business?" Josie decided to be honest with him. Josie confessed that he had always stayed out of Dao Ming's way, wanting to see him and Chelsea happy together. But now that their relationship seemed over, Josie felt he had the right to pursue her. He admitted that he had liked her for a long time, but held back because he believed she was happier with Dao Ming. Now things are different. Josie said, "I won't let her cry over you anymore, so you need to decide. Either you go back to her, or you let me try to win her over." Dao Ming coldly replied, "Do whatever you want, it doesn't matter to me." Later, Dao Ming confronted Chelsea in front of Josie, pulling her aside to talk. "Do you hate me that much that you'd just disappear like that?" She tried to make excuses, but he called her out. "You always run away from answering properly," he said, frustrated. Fearing for her friend's safety because of his mother, she finally told him the truth. But Dao Ming was upset. "If you had been honest about your feelings instead of playing with me like a puppet, things wouldn't have gotten this bad." She was about to confess her love for him, regardless of the consequences, but he interrupted her. "Don't cry. Even if you do, I won't help you." He told her not to avoid him anymore at university, and that their relationship was over. "You can do whatever you want now." As he walked away, she stopped him, pulling out the necklace he had given her. But he took it and threw it into the water. She immediately started searching for it, determined to retrieve it. Josie jumped in and pulled her out of the water, urging her to forget about the necklace, but she refused. He eventually joined her in searching, and when he found it, she took it from him, realizing she could no longer deny her feelings for Dao Ming, no matter how hard she tried. Josie took her to a rooftop, where she could scream and release all her emotions. He knew she needed to let it out. One day, her grandmother called her, scolding her for not checking in and asking her to meet. They met at a restaurant, where her grandmother asked about her relationship with Dao Ming. Josie explained that they had broken up because of his mother, recounting the entire story. Her grandmother told her she had made a mistake. "You sacrificed your happiness to save your friends, but in the process, you hurt yourself. That was wrong. No one else will feel the pain inside you except you." Josie started crying with every word her grandmother said because she knew she was right. After her grandmother left, Chelsea stood there thinking for a moment before running after the car to confess the feelings she couldn't share with anyone else. She admitted that she still loved Dao Ming and couldn't stay away from him. The next day at university, she saw Dao Ming standing with his friends and approached him as if nothing had happened. Even his friends were surprised by her behavior, thinking she was possessed or something. They assumed she was just trying to adapt to their breakup. Dao Ming, however, was furious. "If only she had confessed her love to me, I would have stood up to the whole world for her. She has no right to act like the victim now." On the day of Dao Ming's graduation, Josie approached Woozi and asked him to help her win Chelsea's heart so she could get closer to Dao Ming. Woozi refused, but she argued that they were both suffering anyway. She believed if Woozi got closer to Chelsea, she might eventually forget Dao Ming. Woozi reluctantly agreed to her plan. Later, Woozi performed a musical piece for Chelsea in front of the whole class, with everyone watching. When he finished, he hugged her. As she tried to pull away, he asked her to give him some of her time now that he was graduating. One day, Chelsea ran into Xiaozi and decided to sit with her for a chat. During their conversation, Chelsea casually asked if Xiaozi liked Woozi and how she hadn't been affected by his heartfelt performance. Chelsea explained that she saw Woozi only as a friend who made her feel safe. Suddenly, Xiaozi became flustered and tried to rush Chelsea out, saying she might be late for work. Chelsea left, confused by Xiaozi's awkwardness. She soon saw Dao Ming walking into the cafe to meet Xiaozi and realized the situation. Things might be getting back on track between her and Dao Ming. Xiaoji asked Dao Ming if he would give her a chance, but he replied that he still loved Chelsea. Trying to hold back her emotions, Xiaoji smiled and said, "That's fine. At least we can still be friends." Meanwhile, Chelsea began to hope that she would be able to get back together with Woozi. She hoped that she and Dao Ming might reconcile, only to fall into depression when she thought they wouldn't. It started to affect everyone around her. One evening, Woozi offered to walk Chelsea home and thanked her for trusting him and letting him support her through everything, from helping her find a place to live to just being there for her. He tried to get closer to her, but she hesitated and told him it would be hard for them to be together. Woozi already knew that, but said he would stay by her side, even as a friend. He also advised her to hold on to her love for Dao Ming, because she would regret it if she didn't. The next day, Dao Ming woke up determined to do what he had to before it was too late. He went straight to Josie to tell him he wouldn't give up on Chelsea no matter what. Josie called Chelsea and asked her to turn off her phone for the day. Meanwhile, Dao Ming was searching everywhere for her, trying to call her, but her phone was off. The next morning, Woozi went to pick Chelsea up from her house, just as Dao Ming was heading there, after finally finding out her address. Woozi told Chelsea that Dao Ming had called him the previous night, saying he wanted her back and that he seemed determined this time. At that moment, Dao Ming arrived and told Chelsea he couldn't stay away from her anymore. But Woozi stepped in and told Dao Ming. When the bus arrived, Chelsea got on without saying a word and left them both behind. Dao Ming ran after the bus, unable to let Chelsea go. Just as he was about to lose hope, she got off the bus too. Turns out she's as stubborn and clueless as he is, and couldn't bear to stay away from him. But of course, these two can't have peace for long. It's us who have to suffer through their antics. Suddenly, the police showed up to arrest Chelsea for stealing a necklace, because our genius Dao Ming had filed a theft report about it. When he couldn't figure out where to find her, he thought the police would bring her to him. Oh Lord, give me patience. I can't handle these kids anymore. When Chelsea was released, she yelled at him a bit, but then forgot about it and hugged him tightly. Their touching reunion was cut short by the sound of their rumbling stomachs, so they went to grab some food. Over dinner, Dao Ming told her they should go to London together. Chelsea wasn't keen on the idea since she didn't know anyone there and doubted she could adapt. He asked her. She gave him a silly answer. Isn't it my right to get off? Annoyed, Dao Ming walked away because, of course, he has his moments of sulking too. Chelsea ran after him, but instead of saying she'd go with him, she awkwardly said, later. Dao Ming confronted Woozi, warning him to stay away from Chelsea. Dao Ming grabbed him, insisting he back off. Woozi, in a surprisingly calm tone, said, fine, I'll stay away. But Woozi wasn't entirely serious. He only said it to provoke Dao Ming into holding on to Chelsea and calming his temper. Deep down, Woozi genuinely wished for Chelsea's happiness, which is why he kept nudging her back toward Dao Ming. One day, Woozi left Chelsea a voice message before heading to Taiwan. In it, he admitted that he had wanted to win her over, but understood that her heart belonged to Dao Ming. He wished them both happiness. Chelsea, touched by his words, ran to the rooftop to see him off, reminiscing about all the good moments they had shared. Meanwhile, Dao Ming was wandering around aimlessly when Chelsea suddenly approached him. She seemed determined to confess her feelings, but hesitated again. Instead, she handed him some food as a way to express her emotions. She asked him if he was dating Xiaoji, to which he replied, "Stop being ridiculous. I could never date someone I don't love." Chelsea then asked, "Would you promise to date me then?" Her sudden question caught him off guard, and he nearly choked in surprise. She has this habit of getting his hopes up only to leave him hanging again. Poor guy. It's not like he's a prize in a box of cereal. But this time, Chelsea assured him she was serious. She wanted them to get back together, but begged him not to tell anyone, especially their friends, because they might let it slip. And she was terrified that his mom would find out and separate them again. Dao Ming agreed, but pulled her aside, wanting to kiss her. She nervously stopped him, worried someone might see. He said, "We're in the middle of nowhere. Who's going to see us?" She confessed she was embarrassed because just standing still, close to him, was enough to make her heart race. Elsewhere, Josie and Shinny were plotting to help the two reconcile. One day, Chelsea noticed some strange people following her. When she ran into Josie, she told him to hide quickly. After the strangers left, Josie explained they were Dao Ming's bodyguards, hired by his mother to keep an eye on him. Josie warned Chelsea not to go home that night for her own safety. So Chelsea decided she'd stay at her friend Sherry's place instead. But Josie told her Sherry she'd stay at her friend Sherry's place instead. Josie thought it'd be better to let Chelsea know so she wouldn't feel guilty about interrupting. Chelsea realized Josie was truly a supportive friend and rushed to catch up with Sherry. Meanwhile, Josie and Shimmy had locked Chelsea and Dao Ming in a room together, with Dao Ming tied up. It turned out they were trying to set them up. Of course, Dao Ming didn't object. If he had known this was the plan, he would have thanked them instead of needing to be tied up like that. Looked for a way out, but Dao Ming teased her, saying, "Come on, what exit? We're here together." He stepped closer, and they started talking. She asked him if he had ever been with other girls before her. Dao Ming admitted that while he never loved anyone else, his friends often introduced him to other girls, and he didn't always reject their advances. Chelsea began to feel jealous, which made Dao Ming smile, enjoying her reaction. Their moment was interrupted by a call from Dao Ming's friend, who warned him that his bodyguards were coming after him. They quickly hid in the bathroom. Chelsea escaped barefoot through the window, while Dao Ming sat in the bathtub, pretending to take a shower, with his clothes on. The bodyguards didn't buy it, and Dao Ming was left fuming at his mother for scaring Chelsea off like she'd committed a crime. Later, Dao Ming called Chelsea to make sure she got home safely, and she reassured him that she was fine. The next morning, they met so she could retrieve her shoes. Dao Ming caught her doing some morning exercises. Looking like she was in a school gym class, they went to a quiet spot, only to realize they were out of their depth in handling the intensity of their relationship. Sitting in awkward silence, Dao Ming suddenly confessed his love for her, waiting for her response. But as always, Chelsea hesitated, unable to say a word. If he walked away now, she probably wouldn't stop him. I know I'm personally getting fed up with her indecisiveness. That evening, Shimon hosted a tea party and invited everyone, including Dao Ming and Chelsea. Since no one knew about their relationship, they acted as though they barely knew each other. Dao Ming's friends nudged him to offer her something to drink, which led to them sitting together and enjoying the party peacefully. But Chelsea eventually left the party feeling upset. Dao Ming followed her, asking what was wrong. She confessed that she was sad because their friends were so worried about them, when in reality, they were hiding their relationship from everyone. Dao Ming retorted, "You won't even admit your feelings for me, so how do you expect to tell them anything?" Chelsea was about to confess her love when they overheard Sherry confessing her feelings to Shimon, only to be rejected without hesitation. Chelsea went to comfort her friend and later sat with Dao Ming, visibly distressed. Dao Ming, frustrated, told her, "Instead of worrying about others, maybe focus on our relationship first. It's so unclear. Even I don't know where we stand anymore." He pressed her to share her feelings, but once again she avoided answering. Fed up, Dao Ming walked out, deciding it would be the last time he'd see her. But Chelsea ran after him, finally shouting out that she loved him. She confessed to everyone that they had been secretly dating. Dao Ming hugged her tightly as she silently vowed to hold on to him and stop hiding their love. One day, Chelsea was calling Dao Ming when she heard someone trying to open her door. She went to check what was going on, only to scream when she saw someone trying to break in. Dao Ming, hearing the commotion, couldn't understand what was wrong. The thief, unable to open the door, ran off. Chelsea calmed herself down, pretending nothing happened until she heard a loud knock on the door again. Grabbing a frying pan, she was ready to fight back, convinced she'd make headlines for taking down an intruder. But it turned out to be Dao Ming, who hugged her tightly, worried for her safety. He insisted she leave the house and come with him, since it wasn't safe there anymore. She refused, so he offered to stay the night to protect her, but she forced him out despite his protests. Still, he stayed outside the whole night, keeping watch. The next day, as she was returning home, she noticed lights on in the supposedly vacant house next door. Curious, she knocked on the door to alert whoever was inside, only to find Dao Ming, who had rented the place to keep an eye on her. He tried to brush it off, saying, "It's just between us. I'm keeping an eye on my pet in case it runs away." Chelsea glared at him. "Oh, so I'm the pet now. Thanks a lot." That night, Dao Ming found himself unable to sleep. He admired Chelsea's resilience in handling her challenging circumstances and felt lucky to live so close to her. He almost went over to see her, but stopped himself, not wanting her to misunderstand. Instead, he went out for fresh air, only to bump into her outside. Sitting together, she asked him why he was awake. He confessed he couldn't sleep and cheekily asked her for a hug before she left. "Just one hug?" she asked skeptically. "Come on, why not make it two?" he teased. But he knew deep down that if she indulged him, he wouldn't let her go. He was greedy like that. The next day, Chelsea returned home and found him missing. She waited for a long time, growing frustrated because all she could do was to say. Hearing scratching noises, she went to investigate and found him swatting mosquitoes. Annoyed, she scolded him, saying the place was too tough for him to handle and he should return home, but he insisted. Feeling moved, she offered. Dao Ming smirked, "But my mom used to hug me like this." She rolled her eyes and jokingly sang, "I'll cook us a feast of pigeons tomorrow." "Your singing is awful," he retorted, pretending to cover his ears. She playfully pinched his ear to teach him a lesson. As they settled in, she admitted she felt happy for once because he was trying to understand her life better. Dao Ming, touched, whispered that he wanted to turn around and hug her. But she was already fast asleep. One day, as she was heading home, she noticed his bodyguards lurking nearby. Panicked, she called him to warn him, only to find out he was already inside. Rushing in, she grabbed him, and they decided to find a safe place to hide. They ended up at his house, figuring his mother would never suspect he'd bring her there. He distracted the bodyguard while Chelsea snuck inside. After freshening up, she came out wearing his clothes, catching him off guard. He couldn't resist inching closer to her, but she placed her hand on his chest, stopping him. He asked her directly, "Are you uncomfortable with us getting closer, or are you afraid of me?" She hesitated, as always, unsure of how to proceed in their relationship. Before they could figure out what to do, they decided to leave him alone. Before they could figure it out, his sister barged in, furious, thinking Dao Ming was pressuring Chelsea into something she didn't want. But Chelsea stood up for him, admitting she was the one who allowed it. Dao Ming was thrilled their relationship had progressed, but his sister scolded him, warning him not to rush things or take their relationship further in secrecy. He needed to ask her when she would feel ready to take their relationship to the next level, not decide on his own. His sister told them to carry on with whatever they were doing while she distracted the bodyguards for their sake. So he asked her, "When do you think we should move forward in our relationship?" One day, as he was heading home, the bodyguard questioned him about bringing his girlfriend over. He simply replied. The bodyguard reassured him. Still, Dao Ming felt something suspicious in their behavior. When he confronted his sister, she admitted she had instructed the bodyguards not to interfere. At university, the moment he saw Chelsea, he hugged her, but she panicked, worried someone might see them. He reassured her, saying, later, Chelsea heard from her friend Sherry that Zeman had been toying with her feelings again, acting distant one moment, then drawing closer the next. Furious, Chelsea demanded that Dao Ming take her to confront Zeman, or else she would break up with him. When they got to Zeman, he was hanging out with other girls. Chelsea didn't hold back, scolding him. "How dare you sit here with other girls after leading Sherry on like that?" She berated him outside, calling him out for treating her friend's emotions like a game. But Shemen coldly replied, "Mind your own business," before walking away, leaving Chelsea fuming. Even Sherry was upset with Chelsea for interfering, saying it made her look desperate, as if she had sent Chelsea to fight her battles. However, Sherry refused to give up and asked Chelsea to help her track him down again. Chelsea, though reluctant, agreed after hearing he might be attending an art exhibition. They all decided to wait for him there, with Sherry's friends there, killing time on their phones. Now Chelsea grew increasingly frustrated. She snapped at Dao Ming, who told her to calm down and promised to call Jimen, but his phone was off. As night fell, Chelsea noticed Dao Ming looking drowsy and warned him, "You'll hurt your back if you sleep like that." But he seemed content, leaning close to her. Eventually, when Sherry suggested giving up and trying again another day, Zeman finally arrived. Sherry seized the moment to confess her feelings to him, and, to everyone's relief, he agreed to hear her out. With that resolved, Dao Ming's friend Mozzie jokingly said, "Now that the drama's over, we can go home. Thanks for sticking with us, guys." Meanwhile, Dao Ming had made a big decision. He wanted Chelsea to join him in London. He wasn't going to keep their relationship a secret forever. He needed to convince his mother and make it official. At first, his mother was opposed, but she eventually decided to trust him. One day, while they were out together, Chelsea spotted a cute bracelet. The shopkeeper explained it was Italian, and with a simple press, the other person's bracelet would light up, signaling that you were thinking about them. After they finished their meal, Dao Ming offered to pay, but Chelsea insisted on splitting the bill. However, when he tried to pay, his card was declined. His mother had blocked it. Embarrassed, he let Chelsea cover the bill. Outside, he vented his frustration about his mother's meddling, but Chelsea reassured him, saying, "No matter what happens, I'll stay by your side." When they returned home, She offered to cook for him sometime. He teased, "Sure, I'm used to food that gives me stomach aches." Before leaving, he asked for a kiss, saying, "I don't know if there will be a next time." She kissed him on the cheek, unaware it truly would be the last time. Moments later, his bodyguards arrived to take him back to London by force. He silently called Mozzie, letting him overhear everything so he'd understand the situation. When Chelsea was informed that Dao Ming had been dragged back to London, she decided to be brave and follow him there, just like he had always tried to be close to her. When she arrived in London, she called Mozzie to let him know she was safe. He warned her to keep an eye on her belongings to avoid getting robbed. As she waited, two strangers approached her. They started sweet-talking her, pulling a fast one, and ended up stealing her belongings. Even after she ran herself out of breath trying to catch them, she couldn't. Exhausted, she spotted a Chinese restaurant and decided to go in. The woman there was kind and welcoming, and Chelsea shared her story about coming to London to look for her boyfriend. But guess who she saw? Thomas, the same Thomas from China. He sat with her as she explained what had happened and why she was there. He reassured her, saying that the Ali Dooming family name was well known in London and that he could help her find him. Thomas took her to his place, which turned out to be a modest apartment he shared with his musician friends, all of whom were struggling financially. When Chelsea asked to use his laptop to contact her friends, he admitted he hadn't paid his internet bill. As they were talking, his friends arrived. The moment Chelsea saw them, she exclaimed, "You thieves! It's you!" They sheepishly apologized, admitting they had sold her phone and spent the money, though they still had her wallet. Chelsea sat in disbelief, thinking how cursed her luck was. But she decided to forgive them and told them to quit stealing. The next day, Thomas took her to Dao Ming's house. The moment she arrived, she met his grandmother, who welcomed her warmly and invited her in. But she warned Chelsea to stay calm and composed, saying, "God help us." When Chelsea finally saw Dao Ming, his demeanor was cold, and he seemed indifferent to her presence. He told her to leave, saying he no longer wanted to be around her. Chelsea, however, suspected he was pushing her away because of his mother. Eventually, Dao Ming admitted that his company was going through a crisis and he needed to fix things. He told her he couldn't just leave everything behind to be with her because he wasn't selfish like she was. His words broke her heart and she left feeling crushed. The truth, however, was that Dao Ming is acting this way because of his mother. The company was on the brink of collapse, and unless he married to secure her father's trust, everything would be lost. Later, Chelsea went out with Thomas, who offered to walk her home. On the way, they ran into Mozzie, who had been worried sick since her phone had been stolen. She told him everything, including how Dao Ming had kicked her out. The next day, Chelsea woke up still upset. Mozzie tried to comfort her, saying he knew Dao Ming wouldn't act this way unless there was a good reason, especially since his company was in crisis. To cheer her up, he suggested they go out for some fresh air and bought her ice cream. But of course, he forgot his wallet, turning their outing into a broke adventure for two. They later went to thank Thomas for helping Chelsea, despite his friends having robbed her. Mozzie even insisted on Thomas and his friends to a meal. During the meal, Thomas asked Mozzie why he had come to London after Chelsea. "Do you have feelings for her?" he asked. Mozzie admitted, "Yes, I love her." Thomas then confessed that he too had feelings for Chelsea. He explained how the first time he met her, she had accidentally confessed her love, mistaking him for Mozzie. Chelsea quickly yelled, "That's because I thought you were Mozzie." She explained that at the time, she was playing the piano with her grandmother and hadn't realized who she was talking to. Then came the moment of reckoning, the bill. You all know this was bound to be a disaster. Mozzie suddenly realized he had forgotten his wallet. He exclaimed, "Oh no, my wallet isn't in my pocket." Feeling embarrassed, he suggested, "How about we earn our meal instead? See that piano over there?" They started playing music for the crowd to make it through the day without ending up in jail. One day, his grandmother went to check on him and asked if he needed anything. He replied that he wanted a dish from an old restaurant. He said, "I don't know." She was about to prepare it for him, but he decided to go and eat it directly from her hands. At that time, Chelsea was on the balcony packing her bags to return to China. Mozzie asked her if she wanted to see him one last time, but she replied, "What difference does it make? He abandoned me either way." Mozzie hugged her, not wanting to see her in that state. Meanwhile, Dao Ming arrived and saw them together. As Chelsea and Mozzie were leaving, Dao Ming approached them. Mozzie, unimpressed, told Dao Ming he didn't deserve her love. Dao Ming opened the car door for Chelsea and asked her to cook for him, as she had promised. She got into the car without replying, but after a moment, she changed her mind and got out to fulfill her promise one last time. They decided to spend one last day together. When they arrived at a restaurant, it turned out Dao Ming knew the owner. She cooked the same dish Chelsea always made for him, and Dao Ming had been eating there for a while. As they sat down, Dao Ming confessed, "I've never truly tasted food or even understood if I loved the person in front of me or not. I didn't even know if I was happy or not. But meeting you changed my outlook on life. I'm not the same person I used to be, but despite my love for you, I don't know how to protect you." He then asked the restaurant owner if Chelsea could cook the recipe herself one last time. Afterward, they decided to spend the entire night together until the day was over. The next morning, as they were about to part ways for good, Chelsea couldn't resist and ran back to him. As they embraced, a man suddenly approached them and shocked Dao Ming with a taser. Chelsea fainted. When she woke up, she found herself on the floor, and Dao Ming was there. Dao Ming was lying unconscious beside her. When he woke up, he was surprisingly fine, acting as if nothing had happened. But back home, his mother was in chaos, furious, because he was supposed to sign a contract with her business partner's father that day. Why would he be kidnapped on such a crucial day? She even received a video of Chelsea and Dao Ming tied up with a ransom demand. On the island, Dao Ming and Chelsea wandered around, searching for food until they found a bag with fishing tools, a lighter, and some water. They decided to rely on themselves to survive. At night, Dao Ming wanted to keep watch in case there were wild animals nearby. Chelsea, scared, hugged him tightly. He reassured her and went to scout the area but returned quickly to calm her fears. She, worried, followed him, feeling like someone was approaching her. But it turned out to be nothing. The next morning, Chelsea woke up to find Dao Ming gone, but he soon returned. He had spent the entire night fishing for squid. While they were sitting together, he told her that he didn't deserve her and that Mozzie must have taken good care of her while he had hurt her with his words. She yelled at him, frustrated that he was acting like a fool, trying to push her towards someone else. She told him he was being ridiculous. He promised her that he would never abandon her again, no matter what. After that, they decided to leave the place and headed to the other side where they heard people talking. When they got closer, it turned out to be his friends. He shouted at them, "What on earth is wrong with you?" She had suspected all along that they were behind this, but it turned out that Mozzie had orchestrated everything. She had her bodyguard kidnap them without anyone realizing it. Meanwhile, his mother had taken things to the next level, involving Interpol and the media in the search for him. Eventually, the police found them, but instead of being in distress, they were sitting romantically in a tent as if nothing had happened. To cover up, they told his mother it was just a harmless prank. The next day, as they returned to the mainland, they were met with a swarm of reporters. It was so chaotic, they couldn't leave together. Chelsea got pushed away from the house, but she didn't leave. She was pushed aside in the crowd, unable to get through. Then, out of nowhere, a man with a knife stabbed Dao Ming. He was rushed to the hospital, and thankfully, the surgery was a success. However, he hadn't regained consciousness yet. His friends were taken in for questioning, as they were the last ones with him during the prank. When his mother arrived, she lashed out at Xiaoji for what she had done. Then, she turned to Chelsea, making it clear she wasn't welcome. Chelsea, however, refused to leave unless Dao Ming himself told her to go. His mother, exasperated, stormed out dramatically. Later, as Chelsea sat beside Dao Ming, he started to wake up. Everyone rushed in to see him, but he complained of a headache and pretended not to remember anything, though he clearly remembered everyone else, including Xiaoji. Chelsea, heartbroken, tried to remind him of their memories together, insisting she loved him and would never give up on him, even if he forgot her. She vowed to make him fall in love with her all over again. Overwhelmed, she became hysterical, only for Dao Ming to suddenly reveal he was faking the memory loss to get her to confess her love. Annoyed, she tried to hit him, but he held her hands and started massaging her back, asking her to forgive him. He shrugged it off as a small prank, but she was furious. Life returned to normal. though the media wouldn't leave her alone, as it was now evident that she was Dao Ming's girlfriend. One evening, she met up with Sherry, who took her to hang out with Dao Ming and his friends. However, Dao Ming wasn't himself. He was drinking despite not being fully recovered. Frustrated, she scolded his friends, saying, "You call yourselves his friends, and yet you let him drink like this? What if he gets sick again? I can't keep babysitting him for the rest of my life." Dao Ming took her outside, hugged her and told her, "Your true place is in my arms." Suddenly, he pretended to be in pain. Alarmed, she touched his chest, asking what was wrong. "Just keep your hand there, and I'll feel better." One day they were eating together, and Chelsea was worried about her friend, Sherry. Ever since Shimon entered her life, nothing had gone right for her. Dao Ming teased her, saying, "Just like when I entered your life and turned it upside down, huh?" Chelsea stayed silent, but deep down, she thought to herself that Dao Ming was the best thing that had ever happened to her. He suddenly proposed to her, saying, "Even though you're annoying and you'll probably drive me crazy, and we might fight every day, I still want to marry you." Who proposes to someone like that? But she didn't make a big deal out of it, figuring he wasn't about to get down on one knee and ask formally anyway. At home, a man arrived with 520 roses from him. But of course, she decided to count them. She had the time, after all. One rose was missing. Furious, she called him to scold him. Moments later, he knocked on her door with the missing rose. But she called him ridiculous. He chased after her to show her who the real ridiculous one was. Later, he went to her parents' house in the village to formally ask for her hand in marriage. Her mom thought he should tell his mother first, as it wouldn't be right to get married without her blessing. Being impulsive, he video called his mother and told her he was marrying Chansey. His mom responded, "You think marriage is a game? You need to plan this properly, especially considering Chansey's family. They're not ready yet." He asked, surprised, "Yes, I approve. Now get off the call and stop bothering me." He laughed and muttered something about how she could have just said that earlier. At the university, she waited for him to finish signing autographs for his fans. Yes, he was famous for his good looks. So good, it was almost annoying. She noticed he was wearing the same green shoes he wore the first day they met, when he accidentally stepped on her phone. "Didn't I say not to wear those again? They brought us bad luck." His friends asked her for permission to throw him a bachelor party and take him off her hands for a bit. She laughed and said, "Take him, I don't need him." But he came back to her, so she shoved him toward his friends, telling them to keep him. As they were walking, she tripped and accidentally brought him down with her. They quickly got up before anyone noticed. He saw her shoe had torn and decided to carry her to get a new pair. At the store, he told her she needed to come home with him. She glared at him, shocked. "Getting married doesn't mean you can start bringing me home like that." He smirked and said, "Stop with your dirty thoughts. I'm taking you to my grandmother so she can measure you for the dress." As if she hadn't been to his house before, Grandma took her measurements, and when he entered the room, he asked if they were done. She playfully asked, "Why? What do you want from me?" He grabbed her by the back of her collar and replied, "Do you even need to ask?" He had set up a romantic atmosphere, as expected from him, to confess his feelings to her again, making all the singles in the room groan in frustration. One day, his mother planned to visit Chansey's family to finalize the marriage details, but she canceled last minute and told them she wasn't approving the marriage. She had only been playing along so her son wouldn't get upset. Chansey told her family not to interfere in anything that happened between her and Dao Ming, because she wouldn't let her family be disrespected under any circumstances. She said she'd handle things herself. She then went to his friends to see if they knew what was going on. Massey told her Dao Ming had been missing since the day before, and she knew she was stalling and planning something. Dao Ming's friends decided to go to his house and sneak in without anyone noticing. However, Grandma spotted them. She had been expecting them to show up. She told them Dao Ming was locked inside. When they entered, they found his mother sitting by his side, while he lay unconscious, unaware of anything happening around him. She saw his friends as a bad influence, blaming them for his current state. She insisted that Dao Ming would only marry Xiaoji for his own good and the benefit of the company. Xiaoji was reluctantly prepared to marry Dao Ming. He stopped pairing her wedding dress under pressure from her family. Dao Ming's friends decided to take Xiaoji with them to convince Chansey to go see Dao Ming. Ever since his father locked him up, he had been refusing food and water to the point where his life was at risk. The plan was simple. Chansey had to convince him to marry Zhaoji, even if he didn't want to, because holding on to his love for Chansey could end up killing him. Reluctantly, Chansey agreed, but on one condition. Zhaoji must not invite her to the wedding under any circumstances, as she wouldn't be able to wish them happiness. When Chansey arrived at the house, Dao Ming's mother agreed to let her in, as long as she was there to convince him. As soon as Dao Ming heard Chansey's voice, he got up and sat on the floor. Chansey told him she had realized their love was meaningless and was just a fleeting distraction, but Dao Ming didn't believe her. He was certain she was lying because she was worried about him and wanted him to move on with his life. Dao Ming, however, had made a promise to himself and to her that he would never give up on their love. Chansey felt weak compared to him, unable to do anything for him, while he was willing to sacrifice everything to stay by her side. Moved by his determination, she admitted he was right. She told him she should have been stronger and should never have given up on him. She promised she would stay by his side no matter what. When she left the room, she declared that she wouldn't try to make him leave her anymore. If he refused to eat, she wouldn't eat either, even if it meant they would both die. His mother warned her not to think this would make her relent. She then walked out into the rain, determined not to move, eat, or drink, no matter how much they tried to persuade her otherwise. Dao Ming's sister arrived, furious at their mother's behavior. She couldn't believe their mother was okay with her son dying inside, while the woman he loved stood out in the pouring rain. She told her mother that she was selfish and didn't even understand what motherhood truly meant. Her mother slapped her in response, insisting that she was their mother, and they had no right to question or refuse her decisions, as if she were some angelic. The day passed, with Dao Ming still refusing to eat, and Chansey standing in the rain, unmoving. Eventually, Zhaoji stepped in and told Dao Ming's mother that she wouldn't marry him. Her father also opposed the marriage, urging Dao Ming's mother to let go and allow the couple to reunite. Zhaoji presented the finalized business contract Dao Ming's mother had wanted all along. Finally, they told Chansey that everything had returned to how it used to be, and no one would separate her and Dao Ming again. The moment she entered his room, however, when she woke up, it felt like a dream. She heard Shimin telling her that Dao Ming had left for London and was going to marry Zhaoji. Not this again, she thought. How many times are we going to repeat this cycle? What is this, some endless loop like in a movie? Just then, she bumped into a man and fainted again. When she regained consciousness, Dao Ming was there, waiting for her in a suit. He told her he'd only marry her if she obeyed him. She found his words strange, as if he had reverted to his old narcissistic self. Suddenly, he disappeared, and Dao Ming's sister appeared, telling Chansey to choose one of the F4 guys to marry instead. Chansey refused all of them because she only loved Dao Ming. They then revealed the ultimate plan. If you won't marry anyone else, the only option left is to marry Dao Ming himself. The groom entered, proposing to her for real this time. Everyone laughed, teasing her for falling for their trick so easily. His sister nudged him forward, saying, "Go on, bro, marry her already, and let's wrap this up." Finally, they got married, putting an end to their endless drama, which had been giving everyone a headache. One day, they smelled something burning and discovered that Dao Ming's mother had tried to make them breakfast but failed miserably. She told them it was the first and last breakfast she'd cook for them because she planned to leave, live independently, meet new people, and finally take control of her own life. She was tired of burying herself in work and wanted a fresh start. Days turned into weeks, and the couple lived their life happily, playing around, joking, and exploring places. They were able to get their houses together like any other married pair. Thanks for your love and support. Don't forget to subscribe for more.